This is the latest addition to the classic Game Ball collection, the NEC TurboGrafx 16. I'm going to show some quick gameplay footage demonstrating the capabilities of the system, but the first thing I wanted to do was demonstrate why I believe this is definitely a 16-bit system, as the debate has long raged among video game fans about whether this was a 16-bit system or a glorified 8-bit system. Now, the hardware in the TurboGrafx 16, yes, it had an 8-bit CPU, but what it also had was two dedicated 16-bit video display processors, which actually did the brunt of the work in the system. The CPU more or less just worked as a manager for the system, not doing as much work as the other two processors. This was a co-project by Hudson Software, who got famous doing games for the Nintendo Entertainment System, but later grew tired of Nintendo's licensing practices and set out to enter the console market, along with NEC, who was an electronics manufacturer. The result was the TurboGrafx 16. This is Keith Courage in Alpha Zones. This was the pack-in game for the TurboGrafx 16. I think it's a vastly underrated TurboGrafx game. You start off basically in a Wonder Boy versus in Monsterland type gameplay. This is called the Overworld. The second part of each stage is called the Underworld, which you'll see in a little bit. The first part of each stage is basically, you know, the standard running, jumping platform action. You got cheesy little enemies that you stab with a little, I don't know, looks like a chopstick or something. There's various little huts you can go into. You're basically limited to either buying bombs from this old dude, upgrading your underworld weapon, or getting healed by Nurse Nancy. And once you get to the end of the overworld stage, you get to this little hut here, and you jump up, and you don your alpha suit. Where have I heard that before? Oh, that's right. I think they borrowed something a little there. Anyway, now you're in the underworld, where the enemies are completely different, the graphics are completely different, the music's completely different. It's almost like a completely different game altogether, and it's a hell of a lot more fun. You get all kinds of weird skulls and these dudes with shades and guns on their head. Still basically a platforming game. Basically the goal is to find your way to the bottom of the stage to fight the boss of the level. And then once you do that, you go back to another overworld stage. I like the sound effects in this particular level. Your jump sound, and when you land, is pretty cool. Not too many platform games actually have a sound when you land, and I always thought that was kind of weird. And the sounds when you hit these guys is pretty cool too. And as you go through more progressively higher levels, these platform levels actually get quite long. This one's actually pretty short. Randomly, when you defeat enemies, you get hearts that replace your life. First, it looks like the game's pretty easy, but when you get to later levels, it's much harder. This is where the level boss is, and that's the bombs. Yeah, not very impressive, are they? Just like little shuriken things, but they do help, especially flying bosses. And back to the overworld we go. And the second game we're going to take a look at is Blazing Lasers, which in my opinion is one of the best space shooters that has ever come out for any console ever. This game really shows off the graphic capabilities of the TurboGrafx 16. There's massive sprite counts, no slowdown, nice detailed graphics. I was going to try and explain the power-up system in this game, but I really, due to time constraints, I can't do it. It's very complicated. Basically, you have 4 different main weapons, but you can only have one at a time, depending on which power-up you pick up. And then you also have a secondary power-up, which can either be homing missiles, can be shields, can be an upgrade to your main weapon, or can be homing missiles. The little Roman numeral things that you see me pick up basically dictate which weapon you're going to use. Like I said before, you can't switch between weapons, only by picking up the appropriate icon for the weapon you wish to use. The little pink balls upgrade your weapon, your main weapon. There are 5 stages of power up to each main weapon. Each one requires progressively more pink little balls to pick up. From 1 pink ball to go from the first level of power up to the second one, and then up to 16 pink balls to go from the 5th level power up to 6th power up. The other way to power up your main weapon is to grab the same numeral or icon as what you're using, and you'll get an automatic power up. Here you see the secondary homing missiles, as well as my main weapon, which is the laser weapon. As you can see, there's all kinds of stuff going on the screen at once, and this is the main reason I definitely consider the TurboGrafx 16 to be a fully fledged 16-bit system. I mean, it's just amazing what they could put on the screen. There's no way this could be done on any 8-bit system, such as the NES or Sega Master System. There'd be flicker and slowdown like crazy all over the place. In this game, you don't see any of that at any point. Even when there's things exploding, when there's millions of bullets on the screen, all kinds of stuff going on. It's a very awesome game. It doesn't have the complex parallax scrolling of some of the Genesis shooters like Thunder Force 3. The Genesis definitely did have some power advantage over the TurboGrafx 16, but that being said, I don't consider the TurboGrafx 16 to be an 8-bit system at all. This is just one of those games that really demonstrates that, I feel. Each stage has a mid-boss, which is what that was, and then you continue on. Collecting power-ups, the more power-ups you get, the stronger your main weapon becomes. The nice thing, too, is if you switch to a different weapon, you don't lose the level of power-up that you got on another weapon. When you switch back to that weapon, it'll be at the same level it was before, and you can continue powering it up, provided you don't lose your ship. And that's the thing I love about this game, is when you get fully powered up, and you're annihilating everything on the screen, you're almost invincible. It's very hard to die. But then if you do die, it's very, very difficult to get going again. It's almost like the game punishes you for losing a ship. I really hated to cut that short, but I really wanted to get a quick look at this game here in Utopia, because it really demonstrates the sound quality of the TurboGrafx 16 when you apply the composite mod that I did. As you can hear, the sound is very, very rich, very, very clean and crisp. There's no fuzzy crosstalk or anything like that. In fact, this very well, in my opinion, when programmed right, I think the TurboGrafx 16 could actually be the best sounding of the 16-bit generation. This game, Utopia, as you can obviously see, is pretty much a Legend of Zelda ripoff. And I'm surprised Nintendo didn't file a lawsuit over this one, as it is very Zelda-like. and that you walk around, explore dungeons, collect items, and all of that sort of thing.